Today we are doing 5.2. We are adding and subtracting polynomials. Before we even start adding and subtracting, over here in this empty space, I want to review a little bit of vocab that we are going to need. So I would like for you guys to write down 5x to the third. And write it kind of big because we're going to label what each of those things are. But don't write it so big you don't have space to label it. Okay. In this term, so this is one term, this is a monomial. In this term, the 5 is our coefficient. So we talked about all of this last week, but I don't feel like I wrote it down for you explicitly enough. So your 5 is your coefficient. So that is the number being multiplied by our variable. It tells us how many of that term we have. Our x is our variable. And then what is this teensy weensy 3 called? An exponent. Hey, any questions? All right, so we've got a list here of steps on how to add. We've got a list here on steps on how to subtract. They're basically the same. We've got one extra step for subtracting. So to add a polynomial, we just drop the parentheses. We can just ignore them. And then we combine like terms, just like we did in 5.1. So adding and 5.1, very little difference, except for the fact that we've got these parentheses and a big plus sign in the middle. But it just means we're combining all of these things with all of these things. Subtracting, the first step is the key, and this is what, if you're going to forget something, this is what people forget. I'm not telling you to forget it, but that's the habit that I've seen. We have to distribute the negative. So since we are subtracting everything in the second set of parentheses, we have to distribute our negative. So once we get to our subtraction examples, we will see that. A few reminders, like terms have the same variable and exponent. So the same x to the third or x squared or x to the fifth. And then we combine like terms by adding the coefficients. We add the coefficients together. Just like if I were to tell you we have 5 dogs and 3 dogs, we would say we have 8 dogs. It's too many dogs. Okay, and then I have a little note here. Do not change your exponents. It's tempting because you're adding your coefficients and you're thinking about adding to add everything. We do not add our coefficients. We only add, or I just misspoke. We do not add our exponents. We only add our coefficients. This is why I need Mrs. Jones to make those eyes at me. Okay. All right. And then we still are going to write our answers in standard form, which is highest to lowest exponent. So getting started with this first one, we've got to pay attention to what operation we're doing. So this one is addition. We are adding. We're going to use that same system we used last week with underlining. You can use it if you want. You don't have to. We are going to add together this 8x squared and this 2x squared. 8x squared plus 2x squared is 10. Still x squared. Cameron, Lucas, Cameron, put your phones away, please. Okay, this next one, we've got 3x and negative 5x. We can add those together. So we can think about it as 3 plus negative 5, or we can think about it as 3 minus 5 is probably easier. 3 minus 5 is negative 2x. And then negative 7 and positive 3 can get combined together. Negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. Okay. Any questions on that adding? In that case, we can move on to the next one, which is subtracting. So we are going to be subtracting here. So this is 2x cubed plus 6x squared plus 8x. Then we are subtracting everything in this second set of parentheses. So if you think about it, it's like if I were to walk up to you and take your backpack from you, your backpack is the parentheses. I'm taking your Chromebook and your Chromebook charger and your math notebook. I'm taking everything in your backpack. So in order to do those separately, I have to distribute this negative. So I like to draw my little rainbows. Negative times 3x cubed is negative 3x cubed. This negative times this negative 5x squared, negative times negative is positive. So it becomes plus 5x squared. And then this negative times this positive, negative 2x. So there's a couple different ways you can think about it. You can think about when you distribute a negative, it's always going to become the opposite. So if it was positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it becomes positive. Or you can think about there being an imaginary negative 1 right here and multiplying everything by that negative 1. Whichever works for you. And then I usually like to go back and check and make sure they're the opposite. So positive now negative, negative now positive, positive now negative. Once I've distributed, I am now combining, let me grab a highlighter, these three guys over here, and now these three guys. I can ignore before I distribute it. So I will do that. 2x cubed and negative 3x cubed. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. We've got 6x squared and 5x squared. 6 and 5 is 11. Still x squared. And then 8x and negative 2x. 8 minus 2 is 6. Can you wait for 2 more examples? Okay. That'll be good. There's a couple different things that we're going to need to see. Okay, I'm going to let everybody get this one down. Hunter. Hey, flip this over then. We've got 2 more on the back. The 2 that we've seen, everybody has had somebody to combine with. The difference with these 2 on the back is just like when we were combining like terms on Friday. Is that what day we did that? Yeah, Friday. Just like when we were combining like terms on Friday, we don't always have somebody to combine with. So on this next one, we're adding these 2 together, so we don't need to distribute a negative. I have a 6x cubed. This polynomial does not have an x cubed to give me. So this 6x cubed stays the same and becomes part of my answer. We want to go in order from highest to lowest, so I'm going to look at my x squareds next. This 5x squared has nobody to combine with, so he stays by himself. Then we can combine the negative 3x and the negative 8x. Negative 3 plus negative 8 is negative 11. And then 7 and 1. 7, 1 gives me 8. Any questions on that one? Okay, same thing might happen when we're subtracting. Not everybody will necessarily have somebody to match up with. So we're going to distribute our negative because we're subtracting. On your assignment, they're going to be mixed up, so you got to pay attention. Should I be adding or subtracting? So negative times 7x cubed is negative 7x cubed. Negative times 8x squared is minus 8x squared. And then negative times negative 3x, negative times negative becomes positive. Think about it. We're taking away a bad thing. Taking away a bad thing is good. Okay. And then from there, we can combine. Our highest exponent is x cubed. Even though it's in the second one, we still want to put the highest exponent first. So this negative 7x cubed has nothing to match up with, so it stays by itself, but it needs to go first in our answer. Then, what happens with my x squareds? I heard somebody say it, but you said it so quiet. They combine, and what happens when we combine them? They cancel. Okay, I heard those two things. I couldn't tell where they came from. So our 8x squared minus 8x squared can combine. The 8 minus 8 cancels. So we do not write any x squareds in our answer because they just canceled completely out. And then 3x and 3x add together. So those are both positive. They don't cancel out. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then I still have my minus 5, and he gets to go by himself at the end. So that one, we had to distribute a negative, and we had to put something from the second polynomial first, and we had our x squareds cancel out. Okay. Any questions right now? Groovy. I am going to stop this recording.